banning U.S. adoptions of Russian children. So that was one of her cases. We also have to keep in mind, Kate, that this latest controversy is coming just days after the historic meeting between Presidents Trump and Putin in Germany on Friday. They agreed to a number of agreements. Already it looks like President Trump has backed out of one of them, which was supposed to be a working group to deal with interference and cyber hacking alongside the Russians.
Yeah, we're going to talk much more about that. Even his own administration calling it a significant accomplishment right before the president downplays it himself. Great to see you, Ivan. Someone's clearly not telling the truth. Let's try to figure out who it is. Great to see you. Joining me now to discuss, CNN political commentator, political anchor for Spectrum News, Errol Lewis is here. Former undercover CIA operative Lindsey Moran. She's author of Blowing My Cover, My Life as a CIA Spy. Mitchell Reese is here. He's a former director of the Office of Policy Planning at the State Department, currently president and CEO of Colonial Williamsburg Foundation, and CNN contributor and general counsel for the nonpartisan Campaign Legal Center, Larry Noble. He's, of course, also the former general counsel at the FEC, the Federal Election Commission. All right, friends, let's get to it. Your titles are longer than my questions. Let's hope. Errol, the defense, the White House, you heard Kellyanne Conway, Jessica Schneider played it. The defense coming from the White House today on this meeting is that nothing came of the meeting, so the meeting doesn't matter. Does it?
The meeting may not matter, but that's not the reason. The meeting may not matter because perhaps nothing nefarious was discussed. We should also keep in mind that Donald Trump Jr., in his role as sort of a campaign operative, was not required to disclose the meeting, and frankly, it's not a crime to lie to a reporter. That he gave sort of misleading, conflicting statements to the New York Times, but that too is not a crime. So it's I don't think we should sort of just assume that there was something nefarious going on until we find out what was discussed and why. And that is something that, frankly, I don't know if reporters are going to be able to figure out. I should say also in passing, in the throes of a campaign that was as hard fought as the 2016 campaign, I think any political reporter within the sound of my voice would have taken that meeting as described. If somebody that you know says, hey, somebody's got some real dirt on Hillary Clinton, it's coming from a foreign source, but maybe you want to hear it. Yeah, I think most people would want to hear that.
Well, and Larry, that gets to a good question. I mean, the reality is every campaign is looking for dirt on an opponent, no matter how hard fought the campaign is or not. That's just the fact of the matter. The fact that this person was a Russian attorney linked to the Kremlin, does that make a difference?
It makes a very big difference. It is illegal for a foreign national to spend any money or to attempt to influence U.S. elections, and it's illegal for a campaign to accept any type of help or assistance from foreign nationals in elections. And what's really interesting about this to me is that Donald Trump Jr.'s reason for going was not to discuss adoption, but was to discuss the campaign, and was to discuss information that she had supposedly promised that she could give them. So that means he was going in there expecting assistance, assistance that could very well be a criminal violation of the federal election laws, and was frankly probably disappointed when he didn't get that assistance. You would think the campaign would have an understanding that this is not just going out to somebody who says they have dirt on a campaign. This is going to a foreign national, somebody who has connections to a foreign government, and you should not be talking about them, talking to them about getting assistance for their campaign. And even if you didn't know.
But Larry, even if but seeking the word assistance, I want to key on. I just want to get you on that. Accepting money, clearly, that's illegal. Accepting assistance, if it's just dirt on someone, is that illegal?
It depends. So if this is just something she had in her mind and she's volunteering, it may not have been illegal. But if this was based on money that was spent for research, if assets were spent for research, if people were put behind this, then yes, that is illegal. Those are expenditures for a campaign. And even, I was going to say, even his statement that he didn't know who he was going to be talking to. First of all, I find it hard to believe that Donald Trump Jr., Paul Manafort, and Jared Kushner go into a meeting without knowing who they're going to be talking to. But as soon as he found out who he was talking to, and as soon as she raised the issue of the campaign, he should have walked out.
Well, and that's actually something I want to bring up with Lindsey. And Larry raises something that I think it raised the eyebrows or got everyone listening when they read this bit about it. The fact that these three of the senior-most level official of the campaign, they take a meeting with someone, they did not even know her name going in. Does that raise questions?
It raises a number of questions. And legality aside, I mean, this is Russian intelligence tactics at their best. Let's promise Trump Jr. something that he wants, lure him in, bait and switch. Doesn't matter whether they talked about nefarious activities within the meeting. The whole thing is nefarious. Furthermore, the fact that Jared Kushner and Paul Manafort, who do have security clearances, are in this meeting. This was an undisclosed meeting, an undisclosed contact. I've been on both sides of the clearance investigation process. I've had background investigations done on me for my clearances, as have any number of people working in the intelligence community, and I've conducted background investigations. If you do not disclose meetings with a foreign national, particularly a foreign national who's promising you some dirt in exchange for something, that's a big deal. That's not like leaving out an address that you had for 2 months in college on your SF-86 form. You're leaving out, it raises a number of eyebrows. It can result in an FBI counterintelligence investigation. I mean, it could get you locked up. So that's a very big deal.
I mean, that's why it's raising questions. If it was a nothing burger of a meeting, not reporting it, and the continued months of denials from the campaign that there was any meeting with any Russian national, you know, it flies in the face of that. I mean, Mitchell, what Lindsay raises there, the defense coming from the White House, again, is that Kellyanne Conway, and she was just about to join the campaign at the time, she said they ran a lean and mean operation. There wasn't other people, there weren't other people to take meetings like this. It was going to be someone at the highest level. Do you take that on face value?
Well, I think it just reveals the lack of experience that was present at the highest levels of the Trump campaign. But let me just say that in 2012, I worked on Governor Romney's presidential campaign, and he was widely ridiculed for saying that Russia was our #1 threat at the time. So it's really, it's gratifying that others are finally catching up to this reality. The Russians do present a variety of challenges to us, but let's not exaggerate it. They're not 10 feet tall. They have a failing economy. Many people in their own country are protesting the legitimacy of the government. We need to be very careful about what they can and can do with us. And so one of the things that did come out of this was a ceasefire agreement in Syria. Wasn't the first one, probably isn't the last one, but I think it's useful to highlight it to see what might come of it, to see if it can bring a cessation to the fighting in Syria.
And there are other topics I want to continue to discuss. The cybersecurity unit, I want to get your take, Mitchell, because I think it raises an interesting element of kind of what you're getting at there. But Errol, on this meeting, Don Jr.'s tweet. Obviously, I'm not the first. Obviously, I am the first person. Sorry, I'm not good at sarcasm. On a campaign to ever take a meeting to hear info about an opponent, went nowhere but had to listen. He does seem to be confirming in his tweet that he took the meeting to get damaging information. That was a reporting by the New York Times. He seems to be confirming it there, and it takes a step towards you asking the question: was it an attempt at collusion?
Yeah, although collusion, I think, is such a hot button word. I wouldn't necessarily.
It is, right. It definitely has a lot loaded
yes,
to it.
they were looking for information. They were in contact with Russians. They kept failing to sort of give a straight account, whether it's under oath, whether it's on the forms, whether it's just talking with a reporter. We keep getting these conflicting comments about it. And so they say, well, nothing really happened. And then you find out, well, yeah, something did sort of happen. And say, well, it wasn't important, you know. So these are, you know, if you want to say anything in defense of Donald Trump Jr., I'd say that the Trump Organization has a sort of a culture of using facts like sort of like a doormat. You know, they kind of just change things whenever they want to. I love the fact, for example, that they had the meeting in Trump Tower, which famously is 58 stories tall, but they tell all of the tenants that it's 68 stories so that they can charge them more. These are the standards that we're talking about. So I think by the standards of the Trump Organization, this is a nothing burger.
Larry, just a final thought for you. Do you see violations of federal election law?
I think there's real evidence of violations of federal election law. As a technical matter, what we have to know is whether or not there was any money spent on this by a foreign national, and whether or not, well, we do know that Donald Trump Jr. went in there to get this information. So he was ready to accept help from the Russians or from a foreign national. So I think there is definitely a potential for a violation here.
All right, guys, stick around. We got much more to discuss. I really appreciate it. Coming up for us, Lindsey Graham calls it one of the dumbest ideas he's ever heard. President Trump teaming up with Vladimir Putin on cybersecurity issues. And now the president appears to be reversing course in a major way and very quickly. Plus, New this morning, President Trump accuses James Comey of leaking classified information, but there is much more to it than that. We'll get to it.